can't necessarily explain that, but there is a trending decrease for most of those. I agree, electricity seems to be flatlined at this point, because everything uses electricity. There's things that we should look at in the future, like interior lighting converted to LED. There's a cost for that, but there's also a payback period. Something we should look at in the future of doing some major projects, especially in Percy Borough, where we pay more electricity rates. So,
Are we tied to the borough?
Yes.
yes, 2 schools.
Wow.
Two schools, okay,
I was thinking,
yeah, okay.
I was thinking this.
All right, we have PICO for Bedminster
Yeah.
only, PP&L for the remainder, and 2 that are on Percy
Okay.
Ballot.
Gotcha.
Isn't that, is it Sellersville and South? Or is South the one that's on the border?
Good.
It is definitely Guth
It should be south,
And
probably,
south,
because
I
south's
believe.
partially in one and partially in the other, that's the way it was built.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't
Right,
sure which
Southern
one.
School is
1930.
West Rock Hill, I believe.
And for the schools that were not tied to the borough, are you shopping the electric?
So we have locked in, so we use Amorex for a broker,
Okay.
and we have actually really good rates. Quakertown was in that same process that we negotiate rates. There's different vehicles we use. Heat rate in the past, this year I believe we have a straight locked-in number for kilowatts.
Okay.
So we actually have a good rate. I think we're locked in for 2 more years, which that's amazing. Utility costs rarely go down, they're usually up.
That's a good thing. All right, I was just
We
curious.
actually locked that in, the board actually voted to lock that in probably 2 years ago. That was a 5-year deal.
Something,
And it was very, very good.
Okay.
Like 5 years.
All right, good, thank you.
So this is gonna allude to the next slide where there's some reductions because we have trended down. We're trying to trim numbers to get closer to actuals, but not as aggressively as we probably should because weather could change and that affects it. We never wanna go negative, we just wanna budget close to it. So we'll start at the top. There's a $30,000 give back for professional technical services in this operation of buildings sub-account. It's just professional services. And again, I don't know all the separate line items of that, but historically, we didn't spend that, so we want to trim it down to get closer to actuals. In the water and sewer account, we're asking for a $75,000 increase because historically, we've exceeded the budget of $200,000. And I looked at a 3-year look back to make sure that this wasn't an anomaly. We're actually using more, so we're increasing the budget to get closer to the actuals. Our next contracted services for buildings, it's a $54,000 reduction, just based on actuals. And this is the one account that $300,000 for the non-routine budget gets put in. If it needs to be transferred into a different account because it's a different type of expense, it originates from here and moves around as needed. The next one, contracted services for equipment, was a reduction of $10,000. This is just recategorized, I believe. There wasn't a history in 17-18. We budgeted for 20, we're just taking a $10,000 reduction. I'm just looking at how we categorize things and try to account for those the right way as we spend money throughout the year. So now we're into utilities. Natural gas had an $18,000 reduction. Just again, trying to get closer to actuals, but don't want to be underfunded whenever we need to pay our bills. Next is electricity, a $50,000 reduction. I looked last year, we actually gave back, or had a negative $192,000 variance that it was trying to trim it down to get closer. We were somewhere like $1 million or 1.2, somewhere in that range. So we're trimming down, trying to get closer to actual, so we're budgeting appropriately, but not going negative. The next one's a $17,000 reduction, and that's in the fuel oil. And you saw all those are trending down. This is the one that seemed to be a little more volatile in past years, so just trimming it down, trying to get closer.
So the electricity we did take down, and we talked about taking it down further, but we decided not to do that with the project this summer with air conditioning in the elementary buildings, and that'll have an impact on electricity costs. So we thought we had some room to come down, and we really wanted to be careful about how far we went down until we saw the impact of that air.
good point. We don't know exactly how much that's gonna increase, but expected to have some impact. Any questions on that slide?
No?
Okay. Next, this is sections of, again, it's a 2600, but it's grounds maintenance, athletic maintenance, and equipment maintenance. So this one requires a little more explanation. So the first two line items, a $9,500 reduction and a $5,000 reduction, these have to do with Poppy Yoder Field. Historically, we always fertilized it, did extra services there to maintain it, make it our best field. Now that all those games are being played here at the stadium, I want to take that money out and turn this into a sports field fertilization program. Something I did in my past district. I can buy a machine for $9,500 essentially, that we can do our own fertilization, and for $5,000 a year buy the product to do that. So get the machine and fertilize. We can fertilize all 3 elementary schools' fields. So when you see that baseball field that's all yellow and the outfield of dandelions, it won't happen in the first year because it takes some time to build that up. But we can transfer that money and in-house do fertilization. So those 2 negative impacts in the capital equipment new, it's $59,500. The $5,000 is a base that we have a tractor and mower replacement. I have schedules of those and 2 slides from now to talk about that, but $50,000 of that is an allocation towards replacing mowers and snow removal tractors. And then the additional $9,500 is that fertilization machine. And when you look down to the $5,000 under general supplies under athletics, that's the supplies for fertilization. So basically taking the contracted service and things we were doing just at Poppy Yoder Field and doing all the middle schools and high school fields that need that extra fertilization. It plays into athlete safety, appearance, all those kind of things. Questions besides the $50,000 number? Okay, next slide.
Moving along.
So this is the end of the budget. There's only one line item on this that has a variance. It's automobile liability insurance. The quote we got was $1,815 more than what was previously budgeted. Questions on that? Okay, so the last ones I have is, so this is our vehicle replacement plan. And there wasn't a variance in this account, but I can go back to that and find it. I believe in here should be a line item for a vehicle replacement. Okay. Oh, okay, there was, okay, it's in that same slide. So, under capital equipment new, $60,000 for a replacement plow truck or like-kind vehicle, and I'll go through the list we have for the vehicle replacement plan, which starts here. So this is a list of all the maintenance vehicles we have, and majority of these are set up to plow snow throughout the district. Some of these are exclusively just a salt plow truck that isn't used daily by a maintenance guy to travel between buildings. So the prioritized, and this is something I inherited, and I just respun it up so I have it poor to excellent. The very top line is a truck that we just obsoleted. And that's top of the line for replacement. So that'd be a 1920 replacement year. Then the next one down is that 2006 Chevy bucket truck. And then the following year, this Chevy dump truck. So we're just looking at trying to replace a maintenance vehicle on an annual basis as needed. Right now, we have poor and fair poor conditions that these trucks are in need of replacement. And I have a mower tractor list that follows this last slide I have in this. Any questions about the vehicle plan?
Only 2 zero-turn mowers in the district?
We do, I have
Just
it on
two,
the,
though, right?
oh, total number?
No.
That's on my next slide. Honestly, couldn't tell you how many we have, but we could probably count them up on the next list. So this is all the mowers and tractors, so we have a combination of just straight grass cutting, maybe 0 turns. We have, what you'll see is listed as a Steiner, that's a multi-purpose kind of tractor has a cab, you can cut grass with it, you have a snow blower attachment, a brush attachment, a plow attachment, so it's a versatile type tractor that we have throughout the district. They're easy to repair, we do all the repairs in-house on them. Have a few pieces of John Deere equipment. I see a Kubota, some of those zero turns, but yeah, I think we're trending towards zero turns because speed and the way that they do a good job of cutting. So if that's not a tractor combination, it's a good way to get the job done. And this is the same thing. We have ones that are in poor, very poor condition, just trying to have a cycle of replacement that we're accounting and making sure we have equipment that's up and running well. Any questions on the mower tractor replacement? That's the end of that list. Any general questions about the budget?
No, but good job.
Thank you, we're approaching the 10 o'clock hour and I have one more. Oh, it's already queued up, good. Okay, we're ready for the next?
Yes.
So this is a proposed staffing addition. So the proposed staffing addition is for an assistant director of operations. And previously, we had a similar position filled here in the district. Tony Secreto, he was the person that filled that job. He retired in December of 2015. I believe he was here 8 to 10 years. He was a custodial supervisor. And the premise of this position is to do that kind of role, but I'll lead you through that. I did research to try to justify why it's needed, how it makes sense, how other school districts do things. But to give you a scope of what we have here at Pennridge, the operations department has over 70 employees, 13 buildings that have 1.4 million square feet, 340 acres of land. So PASBO, I'm sure you've heard of and familiar with, they have a lot of information to help out school districts, and they have a subcommittee of facilities that the regional chapters of Delaware Valley School Facility Managers. I sent an email out to that large group, it's over 100 staff. I only got about a dozen responses back. My questions were, what's your square footage? How many maintenance FTE, grounds, mid-level managers? And most similarly sized school districts close to us have more than one of these mid-level managers. My next slide shows the survey results. I condensed it down to the things that made more sense. So we're the green line, Pennridge School District, 1.4 million square feet, and that seemed to be the biggest point of data to look at as comparison to say, how many maintenance people do you need? How many custodians? How many grounds? How many mid-level managers? So if you go down the list, and it is going down to 829,000 square feet of the different school districts, you can see, I'm not sure which column it is, number 6, number of mid-level managers. And the last column is those specific managers that those school districts actually have specific staff to do those jobs. So this is a comparison of local school districts in the Delaware Valley. They're not all Bucks County, obviously, but it's ones that are similar size to us, how they staff. I don't know that you can really look at maintenance FTEs, custodial. To me, it made more sense to look at total building square footage because you're managing skilled maintenance, grounds, a large number of custodians and facility managers. So that's the source data that I have, and I can move on to make some more specific connections. So what would an assistant director do? And I really targeted assistant director rather than custodial supervisor because their basic function would be a custodial supervisor, but I wanted to share some administrative responsibilities as well. Their shift would be a second shift, and I'll show you an organization chart of where the employees are, their shifts, and how that works, but this would be a sample set of what their required duties would look like. Basically supervising facility managers, custodians, looking at our cleaning methods, making that better, the different cleaning equipment, managing the staffing levels, of course, supervising quality control and doing annual evaluations of majority of those people, and they're just some of the sample duties. So to look at the org chart, and I know it's small, but I kind of color-coded it so you can see what's what. On the far left, there's 4 ground staff. In the dark red, they're general maintenance. The orangish is our skilled maintenance. Then there's an operations secretary. And then from that point to the right, the top line are facility managers. They're the daytime head custodian kind of people. Then you have the blue, it's a full-time custodian. Light blue is a part-time custodian. So you see 71 employees under the responsibility of operations. That's a lot to manage without mid-level supervision. If we were to add the mid-level supervisor, it would look something like this. It's the bright red in the middle. So they'd be on a second shift where most of the custodians are. And we have, number is 47 people on second and third shifts. So it's better served by having a second shift supervisor help out managing them, optimizing them, having eyes on them on a daily basis. That would leave 24 during the day. So there would be some overlap from this assistant director that would interface with the daytime facility managers. So I kind of split it left and right, but I would have overall jurisdiction over all of these people. I'd mainly interact with the day shift mostly, and there'd be some overlap with the assistant director, and he would really be there mainly for the second shift employees. Any questions so far? I'm close to the end.
It's just so easy to
The facility-
understand.
Good,
Oh, never mind.
You see it?
I answered my own question.
okay. I tried to make it easy to understand.
It really is.
So
Yeah, I
those
just
are-
need a magnifying glass.
I tried to color code it.
I know, it's too much, it's just a lot to try to fit in one thing.
Yeah.
And if you didn't fit it in one thing, it would be confusing too, so.
Right, it was tough to
Lose,
squeeze in.
lose.
So then, the big question is, how much money does this cost? And that's the next slide. So, research of this, so I looked at the Bucks County Intermediate Unit. In 1819, they did a salary survey of all Bucks County schools, and the average supervisor salary for this type position, average, is $86,462.58. So this is between custodial, supervisor, and assistant director. I tried to not err towards an assistant director, more towards custodial. That's really what I'm focused on, the majority of this person doing, with some other administrative functions. And another component of this, I looked at what is an average difference in salary from a supervisor to his direct report. Bucks County average of that, and I had to do the math on a lot of this. The average assistant or custodial supervisor made $27,000 more than its highest paid direct report. So my recommendation for this would be a salary range of $80,000 to $84,000. And this is all subjective, it's a recommendation, it's below the average. And again, to look at that, how much more does this person make than its highest paid subordinate? This number would represent about $20,000 over the highest paid subordinate. Questions?
The total cost to the district though, this person would get benefits and.
Correct.
Plus
Yeah.
spending,
So-
plus spending, yeah.
Right. Plus fringe,
Right.
so it would be,
we'll-
right,
I'll show it to you in the next one.
Fully burdened, okay.
Exact number.
right.
So is there anything I can clarify about that? I wanted to be as thorough and precise as I could with
Very thorough.
data. It's one of those ones we decided through attrition. And I can't speak to how it happened or why it happened, but Tony Secreto decided to retire in December of 2015. And whatever the decision factor was, I'm sure it was attractive. Can we give someone a salary bump to try to take on these duties? It's just with the sheer number of people and that number of people on second and third shift, it really makes a lot of sense to have a person with them, especially like for events. When you have a big event at the auditorium or gym, they can be there to make sure everything's going right. Whether it's whatever it might be, they can be there to address that so that there's a full-time administrator type person on site and they can handle those things.
So two pieces to this. One is from a budget standpoint, Mr. Dahlberg has worked this recommendation into his budget presentation to get you a sense for, can we afford another administrator, right, in terms of what we're asking for. The second piece is, and I just want to reiterate what Mr. Harper said, in terms of the largest concern is the supervision of the people outside of the day shift. And so currently, we are under supervising, which means we're under training, which means we are under supporting the 47 employees who don't work your normal 7 to 3 shift or whatever the day shift works, depending on what level they are. And that is a concern, both short-term and long-term, that we're looking to address with this position. I would suggest, because it is not a cheap recommendation, and because of the time, that I would suggest that we take some time to think about this. This is not something we have to act upon in March. And so to have an opportunity for the board to think through this and to interact with this, and then have another opportunity to ask any questions they might have, to be able to wait for a month to be able to do that. Is that
Sure.
fair from a timing standpoint? Is that still appropriate in terms of us being able to get something in place?
Right, I
If
feel like
it were an
I'm
approved position.
throwing
So,
this on the
yep.
committee that they may not have been aware of, so obviously it's time to digest and think about the numbers that I put in front of you.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Are there any questions about the job itself, though, that you need clarified? Okay, great. Thank you, Mr.
Not
Harper.
at this time.
Right.
Very good presentation.
Last one of the evening.
Oh,
Right.
just one back.
So look at Snappy.
Glass of wine and some-
Bottom line.
Quit looking ahead.
Come on. Do you want me to look at the last page?
Is this a record for meeting duration?
No.
No.
Correct.
Not quite.
Not even close.
Right, but we haven't done contracts. They'll be- they-
Okay.
We'll have to be shorter, but,
All right.
yeah.
Until it's gone.
Wow.
All right.
Thank you.
This is in here too, huh?
Yeah.
Yep, it
That's
is.
the last one.
Thank you, Danny.
Are welcome.
I appreciate it. Danny actually has school starts 7:15 tomorrow morning, right?
I have to be here at 6:30,
God love you.
which means I wake up at 4:30, leave at 5:30 to get here by 6:30.
Buy a condom.
All right, I'll go quick. All right, so first draft of the 1920 general fund budget. So this is the total general fund budget included. So this includes what Brian went through with you in detail and Kelly went through with you in detail. In the next 2 months, we'll have also the rest of the department budgets come in and go through those in detail, line item by line item. So I'm not going to go into the weeds that far, line by line. I'm going to have more categorized and generalized spending to show you. Okay. So my goals for this budget presentation: review the budget calendar, give you some review of the revenue and expense history, remind you of the Act 1 index tax rate, go through the 1920 revenue and expenditure budget information that we have to date, review the fund balance, go through some retirement costs with you, and define a path moving forward. And I see this is not lining up real well.
Is that a PowerPoint or is that a
It's a
PDF?
PDF.
You may have to scroll. Can you scroll with that thing?
No, well, it's better.
There
All
you
right,
go.
well, we'll get to that page. All right. Okay, page 3, preliminary budget Act 1 timeline. Just to remind you that in October, you passed a resolution not to go above the index in the budget for any tax increase, and that index is 2.3%. Okay, so you've already taken care of that process. Budget timeline, the things you see with check marks, we've already completed. The things that you see skipped means that was an Act 1 requirement, and since we passed the resolution, we don't have to do those things. Okay. Page 5, all these items we skipped. Page 6 is where we're at right now, March 12th. We're looking at the first budget. The next 3 items have to do again with Act 1. If we were going to submit referendums, questions to go above the index, it would be in March, and to seek voter approval, and if the voters did not approve that, then we would have to ask PDE. But again, we do not have to do those steps since we're not doing the Act 1 process. Next slide, again, just, this is kind of the rest of the spring, how it kind of flows through April, looking at the budget again. May, the first budget vote, May 13th, and then June 17th would be the final vote, okay? History of the general fund revenue and expenditures from 9-10 up through 17-18. These are the actual numbers. If you look at the total expenditure line, it increases 102 million to 131 million. Roughly $29 million of expenditure increase in that time frame. $17 million of that expenditure was mandated PSERS costs. So yes, the budgets have went up, but by a vast majority, they've been driven up by mandated costs. That's just PSERS. You also have all the mandates in special education and other areas that are out there that drive school district budgets. So there's very little room, for extra things other than what's mandated by the state for us to do. You also see then that we have been transferring funds to the capital projects at the end of each year. The last 2 years, 4.9 million and 3.9 million went over to the capital projects fund, and that is what we are funding that 6-year plan with, those dollars. Just a pretty chart because I'm a budget geek and I want to see some colors and some charts. It's basically showing you the same data of the revenues and expenditures comparison. Act 1 index, I'm on to page 11 now. This is the Act 1 index tax rate impact. So for 16, 17, 17, 18, and 18, 19, we've been at 135.2555 mils. To the median assessed property, that is a tax bill of $4,209 for our school real estate taxes. The Act 1 index will allow a 2.3% tax increase. That equates to 3.1109 mils, which would allow for a 138.3664 mil tax rate this year if the district raised taxes and wanted to raise taxes, or needed to raise taxes. That would take that median tax bill to $4,305, which is $96.81 increase to the median property. That would raise an additional $1.9 million in revenue for the district if needed. So, okay. So, now we get to the good stuff. Page 12 is the revenue to expenditure summary. I'm showing you 2 years of actual numbers plus the current year budget of 18-19 and the 19-20 proposed budget. At this point, our revenues and expenditures are equal at $141,513,253 without any need for a tax increase. We do not have a structural deficit at this point, and we do not need a tax increase.
Wait, can you just repeat that a lot louder? That was like really important, and it was like,
Rather loud.
just shout it really loud.
Shout
Wake
it-
up all of Sue Furlong's viewers who just fell asleep.
Shout it from the rooftop.
Well, they quit a long time ago.
It's a balanced
It's a
budget.
balanced budget.
I can't cue this so that it comes in right in here.
There you go.
There you go.
So on the expenditure side, that represents a 2.44% increase over current year budget. Revenue is a little higher because we had a deficit budget last year. As you can see, a $587,000 structural deficit last year. We've cleaned that up and balanced the budget for this year, or for 1920. So let me go through some of the detail with you.
So no taxes, no borrowing from fund balance, no structural deficit.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Sum up.
I'm sorry.
Awesome.
What was that? Can you say that one more time? I think I missed it.
Yeah, can we yell it a little louder?
It's already late enough.
So to repeat one more time, local revenue does not include Act 1 index. We do not, we are not including. Okay, so I'll show you the revenue summary, local revenue, state revenue, federal revenue. The local revenue is 75.23% of our total. 24.19% is state, and federal is at about 0.58%. We don't get a lot of federal money based on our economic status here. Again, the total revenues you can see there. Give you some local revenue summary detail. Real estate taxes, we have up $780,215, and that's based on increased assessed value year over year. The current Act 511 taxes, the biggest tax here is your earned income tax, where we have an increase of $728,000, and that's based on wage growth, 2.3% per year. Actually, wages are growing. I saw a report about 3%. Saw that report last week. I'm budgeting about 2.3%. The other line item that's increased significantly is our earnings on investment. Based on our current portfolio this year, I expect us to be about $1.8 million. So we basis like they do most things, we don't stand to have a very good shot at it. So we're not holding our breath. This a little bit more detail about the state funding proposal that impacts us. The basic ed $538,000 increase. Ready to loan, I'm holding that money in that line item instead of moving it. Special ed is about $129,000 increase for us. Okay. State property tax relief estimate. Last year we got just about 2.4 million in that. Our number of homesteads and farmsteads are there, and our exclusion amount, and that ends up being about $198 per property. Okay. Federal revenue, we budget the same thing every year. The amounts go up and down based on what our grant is and what we use of it. The rest of it carries to the next year. It's such a small amount of our budget. We routinely budget at the same level and then adjust accordingly. So. Okay, the next couple pages, when we start talking about our object codes, this is just a description of the object codes. I'm not going to sit here and read them, so if you want to know what the objects are that I'm talking about.
There they are.
Joe wants you to go line by line.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, object summaries. So this is our salary, benefits, purchase, professional services, and so forth. You can see the 2 years of actual budget for 1920. Where are we up? We're up in salaries, 1.3 million. Employee benefits, 1.6 million. We're down in professional services. A lot of that money was moved down to the 500 object as a moving around a little bit of money in the people services budget. Let's see, the 500 line item you can see is up. What's driving that line item up is tuition to charter schools, tuition to the tech school based on what you heard tonight, IU transportation, what Brian talked about, student placements, special education student placements at various schools. So those are the numbers that are driving that tuition, that 500 line item up. And like I said, a lot of that decrease in the 300 was a movement of money to the 500, which is where we're spending it. Okay.
Can I ask one quick question about that?
Yep.
I thought that our placements had gone, our out of district or out of school placements out of district placements had gone down. Is that not the case?
So from a number standpoint, they have gone down over the last 3 years in terms of totals. But I can't speak to the value of them in terms of what they've cost and the placements in terms of that
So just some are more
piece.
costly, specific.
Although
for
within
specific
that
situations.
one of the largest pieces, and something we'll need to talk about eventually, probably not tonight, is the charter school situation in terms of when we look at those numbers and the increase that's been over the last 3 years
Yeah.
in terms of to the budget. That is a large portion of that,
Yep.
almost $1 million in terms of increases from that standpoint, as well as some of the transportation stuff, although that's comparatively minimal to the $1 million increase to that line item.
Our 800 object interest is down, and then the principal payments go up. They're roughly the same. As interest is going to go down, our principal payment will go up because our debt's level funded. So there's your $3.3 million increase in the expenditure side on an object basis. Okay. Salaries increase, 1.3 million. What makes that up? We have some proposed new positions on the next page or so that I'll go through with you. Increases in the contract for PEA and Act 93. Estimated increases for miscellaneous employees, and estimated increase for the ongoing PESPA negotiations. The next page is the requested new positions in the budget. There is one guidance counselor requested for the middle school level based on student load and responsibilities for those counselors. There's one teaching assistant at the high school in the life skills program, and that's based on enrollment. There's a half a speech therapist position, and that's based on our enrollment in speech. We have a 0.5 cap room aide, and that is due to the program expansion of the cyber program and the cap room and being able to service the kids that are in those programs. And then the last one is the Assistant Director of Operations that Kelly went through with you. I put a budget line item in here of $80,000 for salary, and cost of salary and benefits is about $134,000 total. Okay?
So will the guidance counselor float between all the middle schools?
Well, so what this will do is, if approved, this would increase to 5 counselors at the middle school level. And so we would then meet with the middle school principals and take a look at enrollment and student need, and then develop a schedule. So obviously there would be some floating. It may not be this person in terms of the way that we end up allocating them, but we would work with the principals and with Dr. Majorca's office to develop that schedule for the new counselors. Caseload-wise, at the middle school level, that is our largest number in terms of where they're running caseloads. In terms of needs, middle school is also a needy time. One of the recommendations coming out of the audits and looking at our new guidance plan is in terms of counseling need at the middle school level specifically. The teaching assistant is in our life skills. We are going up, I believe, 2 students in the life skills enrollment, and that's a very heavy staffing program in terms of the number of hands that are needed there. The speech therapist, we currently have a 0.5 that was approved either last year or the year before. This is an increase again to that because the enrollment numbers continue to go up in terms of our speech needs. The cap room aide, as we talked about our charter, one of the things that we're going to talk about is for us to be increasingly aggressive with our cyber options, and to say basically that if you're going to charter for the cyber option, we have a program that is equal or better, so do it here, because that gives you all the benefits of Pennridge, and it's also much more economical but better for the kids. Our issue right now is currently Kara Gurish, who is the primary contact for this, is half-time in that cap room, helping students, but doing a lot of administrative and logistical tasks, and so she's tied to that room because currently the board, last year you approved a half cap room aide. You approved the first half of this position to provide some of that freedom for Ms. Gurish, and so the recommendation is to provide full-time release from that room for Ms. Gurish so that she can actually meet with families and interact with kids and actually be a salesperson for our cyber program, because it is really quality. We're just underutilizing it currently, and partly is that because Kara is not available to help with that, in addition to her tech integrator positions. And she is still a tech integrator at the high school and is very busy for that. And then the assistant director of operations we spoke about tonight.
And the other cyber programs that are out there are not successful when you look at, performance for students.
Definitely.
And so I think it would be really helpful if we could highlight all of that information and share that, with parents who are in those situations.
We do have cyber meetings twice a year for interested families, and we actually recruit. We actually contact our students who are in cyber programs, and so we do have a couple publications that have that kind of information in it that we do share with those families to say, the program you're in, here's their success rate, here's our success rate, let's talk about why.
Okay. All right, so of the $1.3 million increase in salaries, about $185,000 this year is the requested new positions. Okay. Let's see here. So moving on to slide 25, this is our 200 benefits, or 200 object, which is our benefits. This increase is $1.6 million. This is driven by Social Security, which is based on wages, retirement, which is based on the increased rate from 33.43 to 34.29 this year. Also, retirement increase, which is based on wages, so you get hit there twice. And then all other benefit line items are based on the number of employees budget. Okay? If you look at the detail of that 200 line item, you can see the 230 object, the retirement of the 1.6 million, 1.255 of that increase is state mandated retirement. So that's where our costs are. Workers' comp, I just point out to you, we've decreased the budget by 131,000. If you remember last year, we changed our workers' comp carrier to the school district's insurance consortium. So we are building that savings into this budget, okay? And then the medical, dental, vision, and RX are basically based on, those increases are based on where people are at, like what benefit level they are, plus the new positions. This budget does not have again, this year does not have an increase built in for health and prescription insurance or any insurances. We are based on our history and based on our fund balance in that reserve or the health insurance reserve. We're not going to increase this line item. Last year we added again, I think another 500,000 to the reserve. So, and then based on our changes in the contract for prescription, which the board did a great job getting negotiated in, and I think we can hold the line again. Okay, till we can actually see some use of that fund balance. Okay. Okay. Another pretty chart, because I'm a geek. Just your objects. You can see salaries and benefits just chew up the biggest chunk of the pie.
And just to highlight with that prescription plan, not only was it saving us money, but it also gave better benefits to the employees too. So it was a win-win for everybody.
Yep. Okay, we'll move to the function part of the budget. So we showed it to you, you looked at it in the objects. Now we'll look at it from the function, which is the program side. I got 2 pages of description of what all the functions mean. So if you can't sleep tonight, read those. Okay, expenditure summary by function. Again, showing you the 2 actual years, the current year budget, the proposal, and the variance. So the variances in the 1100 regular instruction, about $500,000, and basically that's wages and retirement driving that increase. Special ed programs, $1.1 million increase. So again, this is where our cost drivers are at this point, where we're building more money into the budget. Wages, retirement, the tuition that we talked about, and those few new positions there, that's what's driving that increase. The vocational education line item, that's the increase in the tuition that Jeff showed us tonight. The rest of those line items are pretty flat. So that's all of the instructional costs, up 1.9 million. When you look at your support services, 2,100 pupil personnel is $301,000 up. That's the new guidance position and wages for the folks in retirement, for the folks in that area. Instructional staff, 2,200, again, wages and retirement, driving that. 2,600 new position. The security costs that I had that were in the high school budget last year, I have now over into the 2,600 into the security. So it's not a change in the overall budget. I just moved it to the right place, to the different place, and the retirement costs. So pretty much is what's driving. I also have a increase built in for negotiations, which is kind of tucked away there in the 2,500 line item. That's why you see that, it looks like a number that should be way too high, and that's why. So support services is up 1.6 million total. Non-instructional services are down 200,000. Budget, proposed budget to budget. The next one is our debt, overall debt, so that would be our interest plus our principal payments. It's pretty flat down, $5,500, and that's based on the debt service schedules. We keep a budgetary reserve of $337,000 in the budget, and that's not a lot of money when we're talking about $141 million bucks. So we have a pretty tight budgetary reserve, and we dip into that if needed. So your grand total, again, there's the $141 million, which is $3.3 million increase. Okay. Another cool chart, because I'm a geek. Total instruction is 61% of the budget. Support, instructional support is 29%. And then the other two smaller pieces, the non-instructional, and then the debt is at 9% of our budget, which is not a bad number for total debt for a school district. Most districts are well over 10% on their way to 15. So.
Right. To look at a district having 90% of their data going straight to support and instruction is really pretty strong. That's a great number. There should be more green on it if you're going to truly geek out. But other than that, it's a good chart. So.
Okay, so just some data for you to take a look at if you have an interest in it when you get a chance. The next 2 pages are school and department budgets. What we do is when those budgets come in, we sit down with those department leaders and department heads, principals, so forth, and go through their budgets that they've requested. And in that process this year, we cut $294,000 of expenses from those budgets that came in. And you can also see the change from year to year 19-20 versus 18-19 in each of those individual budgets. The business office budget is up $98,000. That increase is due because I have the tech tuition in my budget. So the tech tuition was up almost $300,000. We cut other things out of our business office budget to absorb a lot of that tech increase this year. And then you can see overall budget to budget, we're up $232,000, and our people services budget is up $327,000, and that's like we've already talked about it and beat this dead horse. Those tuition costs, and the people services budget has all of the charter school tuition in it, so it's really not something she has any control over, but it's in her budget. She's the unlucky one that has it.
She gets to live with it.
She has to live with it. So, as you can see, what all the year from year changes to all the different program budgets. Okay. So also then just to give you some more information there at the 17-18 actual, and then current year budget and 19-20 budget for each of those program budgets. The change from year to year, and then the percentage change.
Cool.
So take a look at those when you,
On board.
if you're really sleepy, can't sleep. This is the fund balance. I know I show you guys this a lot, but I like to keep it in and keep it in front of you just to show you where we're at with fund balance. The unassigned fund balance, the committed fund balances. Unassigned is 9.3 million. Total general fund balance is 16.5, and these are our numbers as of the end of 17-18 fiscal year. And on our capital project commitment, 19.7 million at the end of 17-18. The 587,000 to balance the budget will go away if we pass a balanced budget, and then that money will go back down to the unassigned category.
Okay.
Just wanted to give you a little bit of an idea of what has happened with PSERS since 09-10. The rate in 09-10 was 4.78%. We're now at 34.29% of every salary dollar we pay out to go to PSERS. PSERS annual expenses went from 2.6 million up to 21 million budgeted for 19-20.
Nice.
Over that time period, that's an $18.7 million increase. The difference between this one and the one I showed you a little bit earlier is this includes the 1920 budget of 1.255, so it's 18.4 over that time frame. You can see the expense change from the prior year there, and also the general fund total expenditure increase. So in that time frame, the general fund would goes up 36 million, and 18 million of that is Peasers. And the very last line item shows you what percentage of the total expenditure is driven by Peasers. So 37.23% of our $3.3 million increase is Peasers this year. You can see in some years, Pennridge actually reduced the rest of the budget further than the cost of Peasers, because Peasers was above 100% of the change in the budget.
Wow.
So there were years that the district was cutting so hard, they were cutting beyond what the cost increase in Peasers was. So, and that was, back in some pretty tough years, so. All right, another chart on Peasers. This one kind of takes you from 13-14 out to current, and then shows you the next 5 years out into the future what the rate is predicted to be. Each year when they set the rate, they predict the next 4 or 5 years. So we can grab that and we can show that to you. The refreshing part of this, if there is a refreshing part about costs going up, is that you can see the number that increases going forward are much smaller than they have been in the past. So it's still going to go up. It's just not predicted to go up as
much,
drastically and as fast. This is not a short-term thing where we're going to be between 35 and 40%. We're going to be at that rate long past the time that all of us are gone from here. This is a 25 or 30 year problem.
Right.
That this rate's going to be at this up here. So it's a long-term issue.
Although they keep saying it's capping off, and then they keep pushing off the capping off.
They're not fixing it.
Right.
They gotta fix the problem.
Not easy to fix.
Wouldn't that be
We
awesome?
don't know.
It's
Especially when you predict a rate of return of 7.5%. Don't know what happened with most of you, but 7.5% last year wasn't a real good number.
But I know what my employer did. He said, okay, tomorrow you have a 401k.
Yeah.
That's what my employer did.